Before we begin, understand this. I'm not a hero. Heroes don't come home with their best friend's blood under their fingernails. I'm just a soldier who learned that the army teaches you to fight an enemy you can see. It never prepares you for the one who wears your uniform, shares your jokes, and saves your life, only to ask you to burn the truth to keep the peace. This is the story of the night. I had to choose between the truth and stability, between one dead man's legacy and another living man's freedom, between what I swore to God and what I swore to my country. And I'd make the same choice again, every single time. The first time I saw Sergeant First Class Marcus Mack hold and laugh so hard he couldn't breathe, we were knee-deep in a drainage ditch outside Mosul, and the man had just stepped on a dead goat. Not an IED, not a pressure plate. A goat, decomposed, bloated, and apparently packed with enough methane to qualify as a biological weapon. Mac's boot went through its ribcage like a spoon through week-old gravy. The sound, a wet, cracking schlup, made our gunner specialist Delia D. Rivas throw up in her mouth a little. "You're wearing goat sole now, Sarin T." Private First Class Tim Tic-Tac Chun said, his night vision goggles reflecting the moon like a terrified raccoon. "That's a religious violation in 17 countries." Mac lifted his foot. Green goo dripped from his sole. He looked at it, looked at us, and whispered, "If either of you tells Lieutenant Beck about this, I will make you dig a 3-hole latrine with a spork." That was Mac. 5 minutes earlier, we'd been certain the orchard ahead held a triggerman with an RPG. The intel was trash, some local kids drawing on a napkin that our interpreter swore was credible. Mac had overruled the lieutenant's call to wait for drone support. "Sir, with respect," he'd said, "that drone is 40 minutes out. We have eyes. We have ears. We have a goat. Let's move." Lieutenant Beck, all of 23 years old, fresh from West Point, with a chin so soft it looked like it had never met a razor, had swallowed hard and nodded. He trusted Mac. We all did. That was our team. 4th Platoon, Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment. Vanguard. 16 souls packed into form wraps, tasked with clearing a 10-kilometer stretch of agricultural road that the Battalion S2 swore was a secondary supply route for insurgent movement. We'd been in country for 6 weeks. The heat was a living thing, a wet blanket of 112 degrees that pressed down on your skull until you forgot what cold felt like. D. Rivas was our gunner, a fireplug of a woman from El Paso who could strip a .50 cal blindfolded and who sang corridos to herself on long patrols. Tic-Tac Sean was our comm specialist, a former debate kid from San Jose who talked so fast that when he was nervous, which was always, his voice sounded like a hamster on a treadmill. Then there was Staff Sergeant Elena Lani Nalu, our team leader for the 2nd Vehicle. Hawaiian, 6th-generation military, built like a spear and twice as sharp. She didn't talk much, but when she did, you listened. Emmy, Captain Sofia Reyes, 29 years old, 3 years as a platoon leader, 2 as a company executive officer, and now 6 weeks as the commander of a line company that the battalion commander had described as spirited and everyone else described as a circus on wheels. I wasn't supposed to be on this patrol. Company commanders ride desks. They do maps, logistics, and the 1,000 tiny decisions that keep a war running. But our battalion was under strength, and the other company had taken a casualty the week before, and I couldn't ask my people to do something I wasn't willing to do myself. So I told Lieutenant Beck I was riding in his truck. He looked relieved. That should have worried me. The drainage ditch incident happened at 2,300 hours, about 2 clicks from our objective. We dismounted to check a culvert that Tic-Tac's ground-penetrating radar had flagged as anomalous. Mac took point, moving with the kind of quiet that came from 4 deployments. The rest of us fanned out in a loose diamond. The moon was half full, the stars so bright they looked fake, like someone had punched holes in the sky and left the lights on. Then Mac stepped on the goat. "Contact," he said, his voice flat. Then, softer, "false contact. It's a goat." "Repeat, the contact is a goat." Lieutenant Beck's voice crackled in our earpieces. "Is the goat hostile?" Dead silence. Then D whispered, "Sir, I think it's dead." "Confirmed," Mac said. "Goat is Kia. Recommend we continue mission." I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. This was the part of deployment no one put in the recruitment videos. The absurdity, the bathroom humor, the way your brain coped with the constant threat of death by finding the joke in everything. A week ago, we'd found a cache of mortar rounds hidden inside a beehive. The man who'd led us there had demanded payment in cigarettes and a selfie. Tic Tac had taken a selfie. The man was still using it as his Facebook profile picture. But the laugh only lasted a second. Because that's the thing about deployment. The laughter and the fear are the same muscle. You don't choose when it flexes. We cleared the culvert. Nothing. Just an old irrigation pipe and some trash. We remounted and kept moving. The farmhouse came up at 23:45. It was a standard Iraqi farmhouse. Cinder block, flat roof, a courtyard with a dead lemon tree. The intel said it was abandoned. The intel said a lot of things. As we pulled up, I saw a flicker of light from the second-story window. Not a flashlight, a candle. Someone was home. Beck, I said over the internal net. Hold here. I want to talk to them. Ma'am, the objective is another 2 clicks east. We're on a timeline. Timelines get people killed. Let me handle this. I climbed out of the turret, my body armor creaking, my M4 slung across my chest. Mac fell in beside me without being asked. Lonnie took a knee by the front tire of the lead MRAP, her rifle up, watching our 6. Tic Tac stayed in the vehicle, his fingers dancing over the radio frequencies. The front door opened before I knocked. An old man stood there, 60, maybe older, with a face like cracked leather, and eyes that had seen too many armies come and go. He was holding a cup of tea. American, he said. Not a question. Sir, I said in my broken Arabic. We are looking for bad men. Have you seen anyone? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at Mac. Then he looked past us at the MRAPs, at the rifles, at the war we'd brought to his doorstep. He didn't blink. There are no bad men here, he said. Only bad times. I asked if we could search the house. He shrugged and stepped aside. That easy. That resigned. Mac cleared the first floor while I stayed with the old man. His wife appeared in a doorway, clutching a child. A girl, maybe 5 years old, with eyes the size of dinner plates. The old man said something to her in Kurdish, and she disappeared back into the darkness. You have children? He asked me. No good. This is no place for children. Mac came back down. Clear. Second floor is empty. There's a basement door, but it's locked from the outside. Padlocks rusted shut. You believe him? I asked, switching to English. Mac shrugged. Old man scared. But not of us. Of someone else. That was Mac's gift. He could read people the way Tic Tac read radios. For deployments had given him a sixth sense for when someone was lying, and right now, the old man wasn't lying. He was terrified. We left him his tea and backed out. As we walked to the vehicles, Tic Tac's voice came over the net. Ma'am, I've got chatter on the irregular channel. Someone's reporting movement on Route Tampa. That's us. My blood went cold. Direction, east to west. They're tracking us, ma'am. Someone's watching. I made the call. All vehicles, break contact. Reverse route back to the MSAR. Now, the drivers didn't hesitate. Engines roared, tires spun, and we were moving, the MRAPs bouncing over the dirt road like drunken whales. I stayed in the turret, scanning with my naked eye because the NVGs narrowed my field of view. The farmhouse shrank behind us. The orchard passed in a blur. Then, the sky turned orange. The explosion hit our third vehicle, Sergeant First Class Jamal Turner's truck. An EFP, explosively formed penetrator, buried on the side of the road. It punched through the armor like a fist through drywall. The MRAP slewed sideways, smoke pouring from the engine compartment, and I heard screaming over the radio. Contact! Contact! Vanguard 3 is hit. We have casualties. Time stopped. Then it started again, too fast. Vanguard 6, this is Vanguard 3 actual. Turner here. My driver is down. My gunner is down. I'm hit, but mobile. Request immediate support. I was already running. Mac was beside me. Lonnie was directing the other vehicles to form a perimeter. Tic Tac was calling in a 9-line medevac. The rest happened in fragments. The smell of burning diesel, the heat of the fire, the sound of Specialist Marcus Webb, the driver, moaning something that might have been a prayer. Turner had dragged his gunner, a kid named Private First Class Olivia Park, out of the turret. She was unconscious, blood soaking through her uniform from a wound in her thigh. Turner's own arm hung at a wrong angle, his face gray with shock. Park's femoral, Max said, kneeling beside her. Tourniquet. Now. I ripped my IFAK open and handed him the cat. He applied it with the efficiency of someone who'd done this too many times. Lonnie took over pressure on the wound. Dee grabbed Webb, who was conscious but had shrapnel in his back, and dragged him behind the cover of the disabled truck. The whole time, I kept waiting for the second explosion, the follow-up, the ambush that every fiber of my training said was coming. It didn't come. The medevac bird was wheels up in 12 minutes. That's fast for Iraq. It felt like 12 years. I stood in the open, waving my chem light, and watched as the Black Hawk descended into the kill zone. The crew chief waved me back, and I watched them load Park and Webb and Turner, who refused to leave until Park was secure. When the bird lifted off, Turner looked down at me through the open door. He gave me a thumbs up. His arm was still bent wrong. I wanted to throw up. The rest of the night was a blur of after-action reports, phone calls to the battalion aid station, and the hollow feeling of knowing one of your people might die while you were still breathing. Park made it. The tourniquet held. Webb took shrapnel in his spine. He'd walk again, but not without a limp. Turner's arm needed 2 surgeries. The EFP was command detonated. Someone had watched us approach the farmhouse, waited for us to pass, and triggered the bomb from a position less than 300 meters away. The same person who'd been reporting our movement on the irregular channel. Tic-Tac traced the signal. It was a civilian handheld radio, broadcasting from a location we'd already cleared. The farmhouse. I sat in the TOC the next morning, staring at the map, and I couldn't stop seeing the old man's face. His terror, his tea, his granddaughter's eyes. It wasn't him, Max said, reading my mind. He was standing in the doorway, his uniform still dusty, a coffee cup in his good hand. The other was wrapped in a bandage from where he'd cut it on shrapnel. The old man was scared, not guilty. Then Max set the coffee down and pointed at the map. Look at the trigger point. 300 meters. That's not line of sight to the farmhouse. The orchard blocks it. Whoever triggered that EFP had to be east of the road, not west. I looked. He was right. The farmhouse was west. The trigger man had been east. So the old man was telling the truth, I said. Or he was a decoy. Someone wanted us to stop there. Wanted us to waste time. That was worse. If someone had used an innocent family as bait, it meant they were smart, patient, and they knew we'd come back. I made a decision then. A stupid decision, the kind that gets people killed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the answer was in that farmhouse, in the basement with a rusted padlock, in the face of a girl with dinner plate eyes. We're going back, I said. Tomorrow night. Silent movement. No MRAPs. Just us and the dark. Mac looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll tell the team. That was the moment. The hinge. The point where everything started to go wrong, or right, depending on how you measure soldier's soul. Because I didn't know it yet, but the farmhouse wasn't hiding an insurgent. It wasn't hiding a weapons cache. It was hiding something much worse. It was hiding the truth about Sergeant First Class Marcus Holden. And I was about to walk right into it. He moved out at 2,100 hours the next night. 12 people split into 4 fire teams, carrying nothing but rifles, night vision, and the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. No vehicles. No drones overhead. I told the Battalion S3 we were running a dismounted recon, and he'd signed off without asking questions. Command loves initiative until it goes wrong. The terrain was the same. The orchard, the irrigation ditches, the dirt road that glowed pale under the moon. But everything felt different. The air was thicker. The shadows moved in ways that made my trigger finger itch. Mac took point again, moving with the same fluid quiet, but I noticed something I hadn't seen before. He kept checking his 6. Every few steps, his head would twitch, just a fraction, like he was listening for something behind him. Paranoid, I told myself. Healthy paranoia. In this job, paranoia is a vitamin. We reached the farmhouse at 22:15. No lights. No movement. The dead lemon tree looked like a skeleton in the moonlight. Mac held up a fist. We all stopped. He pointed to the front door, ajar, swinging slightly in the breeze. That wasn't open last time, Lonnie whispered over the net. No, I said. It wasn't. I split the teams. Lonnie took her squad to cover the rear exit and the windows. Mac, Tic-Tac D, and I took the front. I drew my sidearm, a Sig Sauer M17, heavy and cold in my hand, and pushed the door open with my boot. The smell hit me first. Blood and something else. Something sweet like overripe fruit. The old man was on the floor. He He was on his knees, his hands tied behind his back with electrical wire, his face swollen beyond recognition. Someone had beaten him for hours. His wife was beside him, unconscious, her gray hair matted with dried blood. The granddaughter was gone. Oh God, deep breathe. Mac was already moving, checking for pulses. He's alive. Barely. She's alive too. We need to. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Mac's hand shot up. We froze. The sound came again. Footsteps. Deliberate. Slow. Someone was walking across the second floor, directly above us. Tic-tac, I whispered. Tell me you have comms. Tic-tac pressed his hand to his ear. His face went pale. Nothing. We're jammed. Someone's running a scrambler. Of course they were. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was a trap, and we'd walked into it with our eyes wide open. Teams, I said over the hand signal net. We have hostiles upstairs. Unknown number. Lonnie, hold your position. If anyone comes out the back, you drop them. Mac, D with me. Tic-tac, stay with the civilians. Get them stable. Tic-tac nodded, his hands already reaching for his aid bag. The kid was shaking, but his fingers were steady. That's the thing about Tic-tac. His body was always terrified, but his hands never got the memo. We took the stairs one at a time. Mac on point, me behind him, D bringing up the rear. The stairs were concrete, worn smooth by decades of feet, and they creaked under our weight despite our best efforts. Every creak sounded like a gunshot. The upstairs hallway was dark. 3 doors. 2 on the left, 1 on the right. The footsteps had stopped. Mac held up 3 fingers. Then 2. Then 1. We breached. The first door, left, swung open to an empty room. Mattress on the floor, a child's drawing taped to the wall, a single candle burned down to a puddle of wax. The second door, left again, was locked. Mac stepped back and put his boot to it. The frame splintered. The door crashed open. Empty. The third door. Right. Mac reached for the handle. It turned. He pushed. The room was full of screens. Not military screens. Civilian. Laptops, tablets, cell phones, all arranged on a folding table, all connected to a tangle of wires and antennas. Maps covered the walls, hand-drawn, detailed, marked with routes and times and vehicle numbers. Our routes. Our times. Our vehicle numbers. And in the center of it all, sitting in a plastic chair with his hands folded in his lap, was a man in an Iraqi army uniform. He looked up at us and smiled. Took you long enough, he said in perfect English. I was starting to think you'd never come back. Mac's rifle came up. Who the fuck are you? The man didn't flinch. He was in his 40s, clean-shaven, with the kind of face that belonged in a university lecture hall, not a war zone. His uniform was immaculate. His boots were polished. He looked like he'd just stepped off a parade ground. My name is Captain Aziz al-Rashid, he said. Iraqi Army Military Intelligence. And I am very sorry to inform you that your sergeant is a traitor. Time stopped. I heard the words, processed them, rejected them, processed them again. My brain did a full system reboot. Beside me, Mac went rigid. His finger was still on the trigger, but his breathing had changed, shallow, fast. You're lying, I said. Aziz shook his head. I wish I was. But the evidence is all around you. These maps, your sergeant drew them. This equipment, your sergeant paid for it. The EFP that hit your vehicle last night, your sergeant provided the coordinates. That's bullshit, D snapped. Mac's been with us the whole time. He was on the patrol last night. He was standing right next to us when the bomb went off. Yes, Aziz said. He was. Because he wasn't the triggerman. He was the spotter. He called in your position to the man who pressed the button. He's been doing it for months. Selling your patrol routes, your schedules, your vulnerabilities. For money. For protection. For reasons I haven't yet uncovered. I looked at Mac. Mac looked at the floor. Mac, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. Look at me. He looked up. His eyes were red. Not from crying. From exhaustion. From something deeper. Something that had been eating him for a long time. Sophie, he said. He never called me that. Never. It was always ma'am or captain. Sophie, I can explain. Don't, I said. Don't you fucking dare. Aziz stood up slowly, his hands raised. Captain Reyes, I have been tracking Sergeant Holden for 6 weeks. I have recordings. I have financial records. I have witness statements. I was waiting to make an arrest until I had irrefutable proof, but your patrol last night changed things. The EFP was a test. Your sergeant was supposed to confirm the kill. When he didn't, his handlers became suspicious. They came here tonight to silence the old man and his family. They took the girl as leverage. What girl? Mac asked. His voice cracked. The granddaughter, Aziz said. They took her to ensure the old man's silence. They will kill her regardless. That is how they operate. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shoot someone. I wanted to wake up in my bunk and find out this was a nightmare, the kind that felt real but faded by morning. But the blood on the floor downstairs was real. The maps on the walls were real. And the look on Mac's face, the guilt, the shame, the resignation, was the most real thing I'd ever seen. D, I said, secure the prisoner. Dee hesitated. She was looking at Mac, and her eyes were wet. Mac had taught her how to field strip her weapon. He'd carried her gear when her feet blistered. He told her jokes about the goat. Dee, I said again. Now! She moved. Her hands were shaking as she pulled Mac's arms behind his back and zip-tied his wrists. Mac didn't resist. He didn't even flinch. The girl, I said to Aziz. Where is she? I don't know. But I know who took her. A man named Abu Nadim. He runs the network your sergeant has been working for. He has a compound 8 kilometers north of here, near the Syrian border. If you move quickly, you might reach her before dawn. Why should I trust you? Aziz spread his hands. Because I'm the one who told the old man to leave his door open. I'm the one who left the lights on, so you would stop. I am the one who has been trying to save your soldiers from your own traitor. You can trust me or not. But the girl is innocent, and she will die if you do nothing. I looked at Mac. He was staring at the floor again, his shoulders slumped. Mac, I said, is he telling the truth? A long pause. Then Mac nodded. What? He looked up at me, and for the first time in the 2 years I'd known him, I saw Sergeant First Class Marcus Holden cry. Not the stoic tear that tough guys pretend isn't happening. Real crying. The kind that shakes your whole body. My son, he said. My son is sick. Leukemia. The treatments, the army covers some, but not all. Not the experimental stuff. The doctor said he had 6 months. I found someone who said they could get him into a trial in Germany. But they wanted something in return. So you sold us, I said. You sold your soldiers. Your family. I know, he whispered. I know. Dee made a sound, a small, wounded noise, like an animal caught in a trap. Tic-Tac's voice came over the net, asking for a sit-trap. I didn't answer. I had a choice to make. The choice I'd been dreading since the moment I took command. Truth or stability. If I told the truth, if I reported Mac to the battalion, if I handed him over to CID, if I let the system chew him up and spit him out, I would be doing my duty. I would be protecting my soldiers. I would be honoring the uniform. But I would also be destroying a family. A sick kid. A desperate father who'd made the worst decision of his life for the best possible reason. And I would be doing it in the middle of a firefight with a missing child, a compromised position, and a foreign intelligence officer I didn't trust. If I chose stability, if I kept Mac's secret, if I used him to find the girl, if I delayed the reckoning until we were safe, I would be complicit in his treason. I would be breaking every oath I'd ever taken. I would be putting my loyalty to one man above my loyalty to everyone else. Mac was watching me, waiting. He knew what I was thinking. He'd been my NCO for 2 years. He'd taught me how to read a room, how to trust my gut, how to lead. And now he was waiting for me to decide whether he lived or died. Get up, I said. He got up. You're going to take us to Abu Nadim's compound, I said. You're going to help us get that girl back. And then we're going to have a very long conversation about what happens next. Mac nodded. Yes, ma'am. I turned to Aziz. You're coming with us. If this is a trap, you'll be the first one I shoot. Aziz smiled again. It was not a nice smile. I would expect nothing less, Captain. We moved out at 23:30, 8 kilometers north, through terrain that got rougher and darker with every step. Mac led the way, his hands still zip-tied behind his back, guided by Tic-Tac holding his elbow. The rest of us spread out in a loose formation, weapons up, eyes scanning. Lonnie pulled me aside when we were half a click in. What are we doing, Captain? We're getting the girl. And after? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The compound appeared at 0100, a walled enclosure, maybe 50 meters square, with a guard tower at each corner and a single gate facing south. Lights burned in the main building. Voices drifted on the wind. Laughter, argument, the sharp bark of a man giving orders. For guards on the towers, Lonnie reported, her scope to her eye. 2 at the gate. Maybe a dozen inside. Mac, I said. How many hostels total? 20, maybe 25? Abu Nadim likes to surround himself with people. Weak points. The northeast corner. The wall's been damaged by rain. You can breach it with a charge. I looked at the compound, at the towers, at the gate, at the men inside who had beaten an old man and kidnapped a child. We're not doing a breach, I said. We're doing a negotiation. Lonnie stared at me. Captain, with respect, that's insane. Probably. But we're outnumbered 2-1. We have a prisoner in tow, and we have no support. If we go in loud, people die. Maybe us. Maybe the girl. Maybe all of the above. So what's the play? I turned to Aziz. You speak their language. You know their customs. You're going to walk up to that gate and tell them I want to talk. Aziz raised an eyebrow. And what do I tell them you want to talk about? I looked at Mac, at the tears still drying on his face, at the zip ties cutting into his wrists. Tell them I have their spy, I said, and I'm willing to trade. The next hour changed me in ways I'm still unpacking. Aziz walked to the gate with his hands raised, speaking Arabic in a voice that carried across the dark. The guards shouted, rifles raised. Then someone recognized him, an Iraqi captain, a fellow countryman, and the shouting stopped. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. The crickets in the field were deafening. Then the gate opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, thin, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a Western-style suit jacket over a traditional dishdasha, and he carried no weapon that I could see. Abu Nadim, Mac whispered. The man looked past Aziz, past the guards, and found me. He smiled. Captain Reyes, he called out in English. I have heard so much about you. Please come inside. We have tea. I walked forward. Lonnie tried to stop me. I shook her off. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it alone. The compound courtyard was clean, swept, lit by lanterns hung on strings. Men sat on cushions, smoking, watching me with flat eyes. A child's bicycle leaned against a wall. A bird sang in a cage. Abu Nadim led me to a room with a low table and offered me a seat. I didn't sit. The girl, I said. Where is she? Safe. Unharmed. She is eating bread and honey in the kitchen with my wife. She does not know she is a hostage. To her, this is an adventure. Give her to me. In exchange for what? I gestured toward the gate. Sergeant Holden, your spy. He's out there with his hands tied. Abu Nadim's smile widened. Ah, Marcus. A good man. A desperate man. The worst kind to recruit because they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. But you know this already, don't you? You know why he did it. I know. And you still want to trade? You would give me a traitor in exchange for a child you do not know. I looked at him, at his calm, his confidence, his absolute certainty that he had already won. No, I said, I wouldn't. Abu Nadim's smile faltered. I'm not trading Mac, I said. I'm trading something else. What? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small metal object, a GPS tracker, the size of a coin, the kind we use to mark enemy positions for airstrikes. I set it on the table between us. That tracker is active, I said. It's broadcasting our position to a drone that's been circling at 30,000 feet for the last 40 minutes. I lied about having no support. The drone has 2 Hellfire missiles and a pilot who's been waiting for a target. If I walk out of here with the girl, the drone goes home. If I don't, the drone paints this compound and everyone in it. Abu Nadim's face went gray. You're bluffing. Am I? You've been tracking our patrols for months. You know we don't operate without overhead coverage. You just assumed I was stupid enough to walk into your trap without backup. I wasn't bluffing. The drone was real. The Hellfires were real. The pilot was a 22-year-old lieutenant named Bowers who'd been on shift for 9 hours and was probably eating a protein bar. I called him on a satellite phone 10 minutes before we reached the compound, using a frequency that couldn't be jammed. Abu Nadim stared at the tracker. Then he stared at me. Then he laughed. You Americans, he said, shaking his head. You're all the same. You think firepower solves everything. No, I said. I think choices solve everything. And right now you have a choice. You can give me the girl and let us leave and you can tell your man I was never here. Or you can die in a missile strike and I'll walk out anyway because the drone will wait until I'm clear. You would kill my men? My wife? The girl is in the kitchen. She would die too. That's why I'm giving you the choice. He looked at me for a long time. The bird sang in its cage. The lanterns flickered. Then he clapped his hands. A door opened. A woman appeared, holding the little girl by the hand. The The girl was eating a piece of bread, her eyes wide, her cheeks smeared with honey. She looked exactly like her grandmother. Go, Abu Nadim said. Take her, and take your sergeant. But tell him this, his son's treatment was never real. There was no trial in Germany. There was only a lie to make him betray you. He sold his soul for nothing. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I picked up the girl, who did not cry, and walked out of the compound. Lonnie met me at the gate. She took the girl from my arms and carried her toward the tree line where the rest of the team was waiting. Tic-Tac was already pulling out his aid kit, checking her for injuries. Dee was covering the gate with her rifle. Mac was standing apart from the others, his hands still tied, his face unreadable. I walked over to him. You heard? I heard. He was lying. About the treatment. About all of it. I know. Then why? Mac looked at me. His eyes were dry now. Empty. The kind of empty that comes after the last tear has already fallen. Because I wanted to believe, he said. Because when they tell you your son is going to die, you'll believe anyone who offers you hope. Even if you know it's a lie. Even if you know you're damning yourself. I stood there in the dark, holding a dead GPS tracker, watching my best soldier fall apart. What happens now? Mac asked. I thought about the choice. Truth or stability. If I reported Mac, he'd spend the rest of his life in Leavenworth. His son would die without him. His wife would lose her husband and her child in the same year. The battalion would have a court-martial, a scandal, a black mark that would follow us for years. If I didn't report him, I'd be lying. I'd be covering up treason. I'd be betraying every soldier who'd ever trusted me to do the right thing. But I'd also be giving a dying boy his father. I don't know, I said. But whatever happens, it happens after we get home. Right now, we have a mission. Get the girl to safety. Get the team back to base. Get you to a medic. And after, I looked at him. At the man who'd taught me how to lead. Who'd stepped on a dead goat and made us laugh. Who'd carried his gunner out of a burning truck with a broken arm. After, I said, we figure out what kind of people we want to be. End of story, we made it back. The girl was reunited with her grandparents, who survived their injuries. Mac's son started a new treatment the following month, one that the Army actually covered, one that worked. The boy is in remission now. He'll never know what his father did to try to save him. I never reported Mac. Instead, I recommended him for a medical retirement, PTSD, I said. The board approved it. He's living in Texas now, working at a VA hospital, helping other soldiers who've lost their way. Aziz al-Rashid disappeared the night of the compound. I don't know if he was who he said he was. I don't know if he was working for the Iraqi government or for someone else. I only know that he gave me a choice, and I made it. Every night, I dream about the farmhouse, the old man's tea, the girl's honey-smeared cheeks, Mac's empty eyes, and every morning I wake up and put on my uniform and wonder if I did the right thing. The Army teaches you that the truth is always right, that stability is just another word for cowardice, that there's no such thing as a good lie. But the Army never had to look into the eyes of a man who sold his soul for a dying child. The Army never had to choose between what was just and what was kind. I chose kindness. Maybe that makes me a bad officer. Maybe that makes me a good human being. I don't know anymore. All I know is that Mac's son is alive. And when I close my eyes, I see the little girl walking out of that compound, eating her bread, believing the world was still a safe place. Some truths aren't worth the cost. Some stabilities are. That's the choice I made. That's the choice I'd make again. And I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life.